Let's move to the
Let's
Colts.
move to the Colts. This is one of the more confusing teams going into the year that I have in my brain, where I think their variance is extraordinarily high. You look last year, Anthony Richardson only plays the better portion of 3 games. Gardner Minchew comes in, and the Colts are
Relevant.
18 yards from winning the AFC South. Remember, there was a 4th and 1 that they couldn't convert on just a throw behind the running back. A little bit of a questionable play call from Shane Steichen, who had an incredible first year coaching the Indianapolis Colts. Alex, this is the hardest handicap team in the NFL for me, because if you told me Anthony Richardson is actually in the MVP discussion, you can go with that. It wouldn't shock me if Anthony Richardson comes out and struggles in almost his second rookie season. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe this is a 6-win team. They had Flacco in the offseason. They really didn't do too much with just traditional free agency or trades. They lose Minshew, they lose Zach Moss. I have their top 2 draft picks up there as their biggest additions. Because Laiatu out of UCLA is the second favorite in the Defensive Rookie of the Year market, only behind Dallas Hunter up in Minnesota. Anthony Mitchell is going to be an impact player right away at the wide receiver position out of Texas. So, Alex, this is a very complicated team right out of the gate for me with Indianapolis.
It is really complicated, especially we don't have a good sample size with Anthony Richardson. But from what I saw, I do really like him. I do think he is going to be really good. He was just so composed under pressure. And I really like their quick up-tempo offense that they had more with Anthony Richardson than so much with Minshew. So I think there is a lot of upside. I'm looking more to the upside than their floor. They have really good linemen, so they should be very good in the trenches to protect Anthony Richardson. I'd say their offensive line is right there with the Texans. The only thing that worries me is their skill position players and what we see from them. I mean, Pittman is a good wide receiver. I don't know if he is a true one. And then that is a lot of pressure here on Mitchell. But all in all, I mean, I think this team is right there in the middle of this conference and can compete with the Jags for the second place. Definitely.
Bringing up the offensive line, again, the matter of staying healthy. We know Ryan Kelly's a top-notch center. We know Braden Smith is a top 5 right tackle. Quinn Nelson, to me, is still the best left guard in the NFL when he's on the field. So you're dealing with a high-end offensive line, which helps a young quarterback. Like you said, I think this is the best offensive line in the AFC South, and honestly, it might be one of the better offensive lines in the AFC completely.
Agreed.
Jonathan Taylor's still there. We haven't mentioned his name. It just kind of shows how our brains work with running backs at this point. But Jonathan Taylor, of course, got paid last year during that holdout. Wide receiver-wise, I don't think they have a true one, but we saw Josh Downs come on the scene last year, and he produced at a high level with Gardner Minchew at quarterback. Michael Pittman on a really good team, I think, would be an amazing too. But when you're dealing with 3 guys, and I think Mitchell right away makes an impact. I really do. I actually was looking at the Offensive Rookie of the Year numbers. They were long, but just, again, with the 2 quarterbacks at the top, it's very hard to justify a non-Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels bet at this point in Offensive Rookie of the Year, at least on my end. This Colt team has enough talent to be a really good team. I just wonder, because they were the natural regression candidate based off of what they did the last year. They won close games. They got blown out a lot. They are a natural regression candidate. It's hard to say they are that, though, because of the quarterback situation. When your starting quarterback played 3 games, you can't take too much from the previous season. If you look at their schedule, their first 3 weeks are difficult. We're going to learn right away, and this is for Houston as well. They play each other week 1 in Indianapolis, right out of the gate. Winner of that game is going to feel pretty darn good about themselves. Then they have to go to Indy, has to go to Green Bay week 2. That's not an easy game. And then they play Chicago and Pittsburgh back-to-back. They'll be favored in those games at home, but they're not gimme games by any stretch. They had crossed in this division, of course, the AFC East. is where they're crossing this year. So a trip to New York, a trip to New England for them. Buffalo and Miami go to Indianapolis. Their cross games, they got pretty fortunate in their cross games
At home.
because they fell to third place with their cross games with that loss the final week of the season. So they get the Giants, who neither of us are high on, and they get the Broncos, who both of us think are bottom feeders this year. So weird little quirk in that because of what happened with Jacksonville and Indy ending up tied and Jacksonville having the tiebreaker. The schedule's there. This is a team I really need to see Anthony Richardson play before I make a full determination of what to do with these guys. If they start 0-2, but Anthony Richardson looks impressive, this is probably another one of those in-season overs for win total, especially if it dumps down to a 6.5. I think 7-10 to 10-7 in that range, all in play for Indy. Not strong enough to make a preseason bet on them, but in season wise, if they start 0-2, yeah, I think that's probably a place to go, especially if Richardson looks like he's moving forward.
I agree with that. And you just sparked my interest there with Mitchell's rookie offensive award. I'll have to look at that, especially just as a long shot, little pizza money. I think he's going to be a really good red zone threat for them and third down target. So could get a lot of catches. Could be like a Puka Nakua. But again, with Jonathan Taylor, I can't believe I didn't bring him up either. Him and Anthony Richardson have not been on the field at the same time yet because he was out the first few games. And then, of course, Anthony Richardson got hurt. So I am interested to see. And we're talking about that O-line. They should be able to really open up holes and get Jonathan Taylor going again.
50-1, 45-1 available on Mitchell.
Oh, I was hoping for a little more.
I was too. That's part of the reason I ended up actually not putting it up there. Latu's interesting at defensive rookie. That defensive rookie market, which we have not talked a lot about because, of course, the least amount of defensive players drafted in the first round ever in NFL draft history. Dallas Turner's the betting favorite. I don't agree with that. I really don't in Minnesota.
More because of the team that he's on, right?
I don't. You know what? It's unless if he just has just such a monster year, it's going to be hard to win that award on a 6-win team.
Correct.
Jared Verse, we brought him up when we talked the Rams. That seems like the guy I'd probably look to at 11-1, 12-1. He's going to have a big impact on that defense. But Latu is a guy who, him and Kwity Paye are probably going to be the two outside ends pass rushers for Indy. I don't have a problem if you just want to go chalk and take Latu there. 5 plus 550, 5-1. I don't have an issue with that because the Colts, again, I think they have a random ceiling, but I do think their floor is 7 games. So they're going to be competitive throughout the year. They're not going to be looked at as a bad team. Maybe looked as a mediocre team, but they're not going to be looked as a bottom feeder.
The interesting thing with this division, too, is most of these teams were very similar defensively. So really, like, looking at this, we're seeing who's going to improve offensively. But the Colts right here, 21% of their opponents' drives resulted in touchdowns, 10th in opponent yards per rush attempt, and then fell back to 17th for opponent passing yards per game. So to your point, I mean, there is definitely room for improvement there where he can step in.
Fascinating team. Win total 8.5, 35-1 to win the AFC. I don't think they're good enough to do that. Plus 150 to make the playoffs. Again, I'm gonna hold off. But there's clearly enough talent here. They have a good enough coach. And if the quarterback does look like he did and improve over this very small sample size we had, this could very easily be at the playoff team. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Parles.
And I'm Alex White. Thank you for watching this clip of Sports by the Book. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe.
We live stream the show right here every day on this channel. Also, you can catch the podcast version on your favorite podcast platform.
All the links are in the description below. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.